The courtroom was silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone stared at Mary, a small woman in a faded dress, standing in the middle of the grand room. Her hands shook as she clutched her old handbag. The fancy lawyer in a sharp suit sneered at her, his voice booming like thunder. You, a nobody from a tiny village, daring to speak in this court? Go back to your farm, woman. The crowd laughed, their cruel giggles echoing off the tall walls. Mary's face turned red, her eyes stinging with tears. She opened her mouth to speak, but the judge, a stern man with a bushy beard, slammed his gavel. Silence! You're wasting our time! He barked. The laughter grew louder, and Mary felt smaller than ever. But then, something shocking happened. A door at the back of the courtroom creaked open, and a man in a black robe stepped in, holding a golden envelope. He walked straight to the judge, whispered something, and handed him the envelope. The judge's face went pale. He looked at Mary, his eyes wide with fear. What was in that envelope? Why was the judge so scared? And what did it have to do with Mary? A week earlier, Mary lived a quiet life in her little village. She woke up every morning to feed her chickens and tend her small garden. Her house was tiny, with creaky floors and a leaky roof, but it was home. Mary was kind, always helping her neighbors, even when she had little to give. But she had a secreta big one. Nobody in the village knew about it, not even her best friend, Sarah, who loved to gossip over tea. Mary kept it hidden because she was afraid. Afraid of what people would say. Afraid of what they'd do if they found out. One sunny morning, a strange letter arrived. It was sealed with red wax and had fancy writing. Mary's heart raced as she opened it. The words inside made her gasp. You are summoned to the grand court in the city, it said. Come at once. Mary didn't understand. Why would a simple woman like her be called to such an important place? She had never even been to the city. But the letter warned that if she didn't go, she'd be in big trouble. So, with a nervous heart, she packed her only good dress and took a bumpy bus ride to the city. When she arrived, the city was overwhelming. Tall buildings towered over her, and people rushed by without a smile. Mary felt like a mouse in a world of giants. She found the grand court, a huge building with marble steps and golden doors. Inside, the air was cold, and everyone looked at her like she didn't belong. The guard smirked as she walked in, her shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. What's a farm woman doing here? One whispered. Mary's cheeks burned, but she held her head high. She didn't know why she was there, but she wasn't going to let them scare her. The courtroom was even worse. The lawyer, Mr. Grayson, was mean from the start. He was tall and smug, with slick back hair and a voice that made Mary's stomach twist. He was fighting for a rich man who wanted to take Mary's village land to build a factory. Mary had come to speak for her neighbors, to beg the court to save their homes. But Mr. Grayson twisted her words, making her sound foolish. This woman knows nothing, he shouted. She's just a simple villager. The crowd laughed, and Mary felt like she was drowning in shame. But Mary wasn't as simple as they thought. She had a fire inside her, a strength nobody saw. As the lawyer mocked her, she remembered the letter and her secret. She didn't know how, but she felt it was all connected. The judge was about to dismiss her when the door opened and the man with the golden envelope walked in. The room froze. Mary's heart pounded. What was happening? Why did the judge look so shocked? And what was Mary's secret that could change everything? The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the man in the black robe handed the golden envelope to the judge. Mary's heart thumped so loud she thought everyone could hear it. The judge's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. His eyes, scanning the paper inside. His face, once stern and proud, now looked like he'd seen a ghost. This can't be, he muttered, glancing at Mary. The crowd leaned forward, curious and confused. Mr. Grayson, the mean lawyer, frowned and stepped closer. What's going on, Your Honor? He demanded. The judge ignored him, staring at Mary like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Then he cleared his throat and said, Court is adjourned until tomorrow. The crowd gasped. Mary stood frozen, her mind racing. What was in that envelope? Why was everyone acting so strange? And why did the judge keep looking at her? As the guards ushered her out, Miss Grayson glared at her, his eyes full of suspicion. Something big was about to happen, and Mary could feel it in her bones. The day before, Mary had arrived at the city feeling like a fish out of water. After the bumpy bus ride, she'd found a small inn to stay at, run by a kind old woman named Mrs. Clara. The inn was cozy, with warm bread smells and creaky wooden stairs. Mrs. Clara noticed Mary's nervous face and offered her a cup of tea. You look like you're carrying a heavy secret, dear, Mrs. Clara said with a knowing smile. Mary's stomach twisted. How did she know? But she just sipped her tea and stayed quiet. That night, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the letter that brought her here. It wasn't just the court summons that scared Harriet, it was her secret, the one she kept for years. Mary's secret started long ago, when she was a little girl. Her father, a quiet man who loved books, taught her to read and write, but he also taught her something else, something special that made her different. Keep this hidden, he'd said, his voice serious. The world isn't ready for it, Mary promised, and she kept that promise even after her father passed away. But now, in the city, she felt that secret stirring, like it wanted to come out. She didn't know how it connected to the court, but she felt it was important. The next morning, Mary returned to the courtroom, her stomach in knots. The crowd was bigger now, whispering and pointing as she walked in. Mr. Grayson was already there, talking loudly to a group of fancy men in suits. She's nobody, he said, loud enough for Mary to hear. Just a farm woman trying to play hero. Mary's cheeks burned, but she kept her eyes forward. She wouldn't let him break her. The judge entered, still looking nervous, clutching the golden envelope like it was a bomb. He banged his gavel, and the room went quiet. We have new information, he said slowly. Mary, step forward. Mary's legs felt like jelly, but she walked to the front. The judge held up the envelope, his voice shaky. This changes everything, he said. Mary, do you know what this says? Mary shook her head, her heart pounding. The crowd leaned in, holding their breath. Mr. Grayson smirked, thinking he'd won. But then the judge read the first line of the letter, and the room exploded in gasps. Mary Thompson is to be appointed as the new judge of this court, he announced. Mary's jaw dropped. The crowd went wild, shouting and arguing. Mr. Grayson's face turned red with rage. How could this be? Mary, a simple woman, a judge? But before anyone could say more, a loud crash came from the back of the room. Someone had burst in, yelling, She's a fraud! She can't be the judge! Who was this person? And what did they know about Mary's secret? The courtroom erupted in chaos as a tall woman in a dark cloak stormed through the doors, her voice sharp as a knife. She's a fraud! She shouted, pointing at Mary. The crowd gasped, their eyes darting between the woman and Mary, who stood frozen at the front. The judge, still clutching the golden envelope, banged his gavel, but no one listened. Mary's heart raced. She didn't know this woman, but her words felt like a punch. The woman pushed through the crowd, her eyes blazing with anger. This simple farm woman is hiding something, she yelled. She's not who she says she is. Mr. Grayson, the mean lawyer, grinned like he just won a prize. I knew it, he said, turning to the judge. She's tricking us all. Mary's knees wobbled, but she stood tall, her secret burning in her chest. What did this woman know? How could she know anything about Mary? And what would happen if her secret came out now, just as the judge had named her the new judge? The room grew louder, but then the judge raised his hand, and silence fell like a heavy curtain. "Speak, woman," he said to the cloaked stranger. "What proof do you have?" The woman smirked, pulling out a tattered book from her cloak. "This," she said, "will ruin her." What was in that book? And could it destroy everything Mary had just gained? The night before, Mary had barely slept at the inn. Mrs. Clara, the kind innkeeper, had noticed her worry and sat with her by the fire. "Whatever's in that court tomorrow, you're stronger than you think." "Mrs. Clara said, patting Mary's hand. Mary wanted to believe her, but the weight of her secret felt heavier than ever. It wasn't just that she'd been named the new judge something, she still couldn't understand it was the fear that someone might know what she'd hidden for so long. Her father's words echoed in her mind. "Keep it hidden, Mary. The world isn't ready." But what if the world was about to find out? Back in the courtroom, the day had started with whispers and stares. Mary had walked in, feeling the weight of every eye on her. The golden envelope's announcement had shocked her as much as it shocked the crowd. Her, a judge, it made no sense. She was just a village woman who loved her chickens and garden. But the letter was clear, signed by someone important, someone whose name made the judge's face go pale. Mary didn't know who it was, but she felt a strange power growing inside her, like her secret was waking up. Now, as the cloaked woman held up the tattered book, Mary's stomach twisted. She didn't recognize the book, but something about it felt familiar, like a memory she couldn't quite grab. The woman stepped closer, her voice low and dangerous. "This book belonged to her father," she said. "It tells the truth about who Mary really is." The crowd murmured, leaning forward. Mr. Grayson clapped his hands, laughing. "See? She's no judge. She's a liar." Mary wanted to shout back, to say it wasn't true, but her throat felt tight. She didn't even know what the woman was talking about, but fear crept up her spine. Had her father left something behind? Something that could expose her secret? The judge looked at Mary, his eyes searching. "Mary, do you know this book?" he asked. Mary shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "No, Your Honor." The woman laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Oh, she knows," she said. "She's been hiding it her whole life." The judge held out his hand. "Give me the book," he said. The woman hesitated, then handed it over. The judge opened it, his eyes scanning the pages. His face changed first, confused, then shocked. He looked at Mary, his voice shaking. This says you're connected to the royal council." The crowd gasped. Mary's head spun. The royal council? That was the most powerful group in the land. How could she, a simple woman, be connected to them? Before she could speak, the cloaked woman lunged forward, shouting, "She's not just connected, she's dangerous." The guards rushed to stop her, but she pulled something shiny from her cloak, a dagger. The crowd screamed as she raised it toward Mary. What was happening? Was Mary's secret about to cost her life? The courtroom erupted in chaos as the cloaked woman raised her dagger, its blade glinting under the chandeliers. Mary stumbled back, her heart pounding like a drum. The guards lunged forward, but the woman was fast, her eyes wild with rage. "You can't hide forever," she screamed. Just as the dagger swooped toward Mary, a guard tackled the woman, pinning her to the floor. The crowd shouted, some cheering, others gasping in fear. The dagger clattered across the marble, spinning to a stop near Mary's feet. She stared at it, her mind racing. Who was this woman? Why did she hate Mary so much? And what did that book really say about her? The judge banged his gavel, his face red with anger. "Order! Order in the court!" he yelled. The guards dragged the woman to her feet, her cloak falling to reveal a face. Mary vaguely recognized a woman from her village, but older, with hard lines etched into her skin. Her name was Eliza, a neighbor who'd always been cold to Mary. The judge held up the tattered book, his voice shaking. "This book claims Mary is the lost heir of Judge Harlan, a royal council leader who vanished years ago. Is this true, Mary?" The crowd gasped, their eyes wide. Mary's mouth went dry. She didn't know any Judge Harlan, but the name felt like a spark in her memory. Her father's secret lessons, could they be connected? Mary took a deep breath, her voice small but steady. I don't know any Harlan, Your Honor. I'm just a village woman. The crowd murmured, some doubting her, others curious. Mr. Grayson jumped up, pointing. She's lying. No villager becomes a judge overnight. Eliza struggled against the guards, shouting, She's dangerous. Her father taught her forbidden laws. Forbidden laws? Mary's stomach twisted. Her father had taught her strange rules and codes, things he said were for justice. Was that what Eliza meant? And why was it forbidden? The judge flipped through the book, his brow furrowed. This says Judge Harlan's child was hidden in a village to protect her from enemies. Mary, your father, was he Thomas the scholar? Mary nodded slowly, her heart sinking. Her father had been a quiet man, but he'd known things, important things. The judge's eyes softened. Then you might be the heir. The crowd exploded in whispers. Mr. Grayson slammed his fist on the table. This is absurd. She's no heir. She's a fraud. But the judge raised his hand, silencing him. We need proof, he said. Mary, do you have anything from your father? A sign? A mark? Mary's hand went to her neck, where a small locket hung, hidden under her dress. Her father had given it to her, saying, Never show this to anyone unless it's time. Was this the time? She hesitated, her fingers trembling. Eliza's eyes locked onto her, narrowing. Show it, she hissed. Mary's heart raced. If she showed the locket, her secret might come out, but if she didn't, they might call her a liar. She started to pull the locket out, but before she could, a loud bang echoed from the courtroom doors. A man in a golden cloak stormed in, his voice booming. Stop this trial. I have the real truth about Mary. Who was this man? And what truth could he possibly know?